I'm going to take the liberty to start and just invite us to take a couple of breaths. With our inner eye, just saying hello to ourselves here, this self now, with all its complexity and mystery and many dimensions and parts. And then to say hello to each of the other selves that are, sorry, I'll turn my device off here that's disturbing us. Sorry. Let's just say hello to this us, just making contact with each person on the screen. Here we are. Here we are. Wow. It feels like we're right in the middle of everything, in the middle of this process of making this us, and all the things that we're learning about leadership. And leadership is a fascinating thing. I'm thinking about it a lot, that it's sort of taking the lead in any way in your life, and being willing to take the lead. And all of us, I think, are taking the lead in very different ways. And it's wonderful to watch that, how each one of us is coming out in a different way. A couple of remarks that I have now, and then if it's okay with you, I'd like us to stop our conversation at about 7:45 and talk about our projects. And I have a couple of things to say about our projects. So after our micro break, or, you know, and Annette is also reminding me that this is a good time to talk about, and we have a lot of stuff about that. But here we are in the middle of our conversation, and it it feels very important to me that we didn't video last time, and instead we developed this whole written document of our communication. And Jim put it up on the website, and I made something in my own Pages file that I can have read to me with my dream reader. And I think I sent you that in case you like that format, but I think something got left out of that I'll check on. And then I thought I had sent you the little snippet of our team meeting, and I think some of you didn't get it, and I resent it just as another part of the dialogue. And I just want to remind us that our process, our task, is to hold conflict, not to resolve conflict. And what I thought of as I was reading emails that many of you said is that what makes a focusing conversation is not how the speakers are necessarily speaking in that moment. They may not be coming from a focusing place when they're speaking. We aren't always, and need not always be, but it's how the group is receiving the communication that makes it a focusing conversation. And when several of you pointed out how we are receiving the conversation and going to this broader level of thinking about safety, thinking about how we make room for everybody in our group and in our community. and the very specific thing about it in areas of conflict, not taking sides. And here when I think of what BJ and Jim were able to bring to us, was a both a personal conflict and also a larger conflict about the polarities of rules and guidelines of participation and the ability to question authority and to feel safe with spontaneity, and those what I call meta structures of focusing. And so we're also holding that in this open way of, we're not deciding between those things, but we're seeing what those offer us. And some of the things that were written in the emails was so beautiful. There was one part that Rosa wrote that almost sounded like a pledge or something of what we're intending. I thought it was very beautiful. So that's all I'm going to say. Maybe we can just see what's there for you after last time, after the emails, after the video, after everything that's happened in the world, everything that's happened in your life, how you are now. What's there for you? Joe, I see you lit up, which might mean that you want to speak, but it makes me wonder, were you able to keep up with our conversation in the emails and the videos, or are you coming in thinking, what's going on in my group now?
Well, a couple things. Yes, I was able to keep up with the emails. And yes, I got to see the video of the leadership meeting that you sent out. I feel at a disadvantage because not being here can't really provide what I consider to be a good reflection on what happened there. The only thing I can say is in regard to your concept of, we're not trying to fix stuff, but what we're trying to do is hold things. I would like to just suggest that when I reflect on what is a felt shift, my answer to that is, a felt shift is something that doesn't fix the issue or burden that you're carrying, but it puts you in a different relationship to it so that life can move forward.
Right.
And so from that context, when you say, we will hold this, I want to put in another element to that, or suggest another element to that, that says, we're not only holding, but in the holding, there is a flow toward coming to a new place. And it may take time to do that. It's not like, oh, we do this and all of a sudden it happens, but it's like a felt shift will come in the holding. That's beyond our creation. It's a new place. It's a new way of holding whatever is there. I don't know whether I'm making sense or not, but that's my reflection back.
Yeah.
All that was said, I mean, there was a lot of different things, a lot of different pieces that I couldn't make sense of because I wasn't part of it. So But my thought around what you had said is, yeah, we're not trying to fix stuff. But in the holding, hopefully, what will arise out of that is the ability to find a place where we can stand together and have life move forward.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. The holding for me, when I say that, is like the keeping it company and focusing. And then that leads to, I think I've had many felt shifts in this conversation. And yeah, I'd be curious if other people had felt shifts of just a feeling of, oh, it's like that, or that's there, or anything like that.
Could I just add a quick thing to the holding? It also made me think how the holding is that you don't collapse into, say, so-and-so's side or the other person's side, that, you know, it is a real standing in the center. And I think that's really important.
I'm grateful that so many people have, added to the emails, and I want to apologize for being late tonight. There was a funny kind of feeling right, like right here, like something around, should I come late? Should I not? Connected to, to my tendency, to my old, like childhood tendency of avoiding conflict. So
Ah. How does it feel to be here now? That little one that wants to avoid conflict. How's she doing?
I don't know where, like she sort of like ran away once I mentioned her. But the adult me is happy to be here.
Uh,
Lynn had sent me a message and was like, oh, maybe like consider adding to the email of what you're thinking. And I had to go sit with my young part as well, because I realized something was stirred up. And when I sat with it, it was like fear. It was like, so
Progress.
Yeah, so it was fear of like, oh my God, like something is going on and they're doing it this way. And then there was like an urge in me that wanted to come out and like control the situation because it just felt so dangerous. And so that part that was like, oh my gosh, like they're doing it that way. And noticing all of that was interplaying in me, and this like lack of safety when other people are in conflict around me. And then for me, it's a pattern of with my parents of like, they should be doing it better than what they're already doing. Like they should be doing it better. So I just kind of let that arose. And I think once that fear was processed out of my system, I had a lot more capacity to hold and see like the young parts inside each of BJ and Jim with more clarity.
When you say that, Abby, I remember all of those fights that my parents had and the feeling of it. And, this one in me that doesn't want people to have any conflicts, wants everybody to get along with each other, or else it feels very scary. And when you're a kid, you feel like you have to either get away, or you have to fix it, or you have to do something.
I did a focusing session with John yesterday, and what came, actually it was related to this, but not related, because it was very interesting. In my 2 classes this week, there was conflict being brought up in the group about focusing partnership. And so I was kind of like, oh, that's so cool. There's just like I just was with some conflict and know how to hold it a bit more. And now here it is for me to hold by myself. Well, in the one course, I have a co-teacher, but she's my student. So I was like, whoa, 2 courses, 2 days in a row. What's going on? So maybe there's a moon or something thing happening.
Yes.
Yeah. Please speak more slowly, Annette.
Yes. Sorry. I was saying that in my classes this week, there was also tension and conflict that came up in the class, and had to facilitate it. And then after focusing about those classes and all of this more broadly, what came in me was the little girl who had to brace herself before being punished. And it was interesting that I cannot be part of the conflict in a way, and still she's bracing. This is like it's just like being in the atmosphere of conflict.
Yeah, bracing yourself.
I think Rosa was raising her hand. Am I right?
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate your seeing that.
Would you reflect back what Annette said? I couldn't quite understand.
I don't know that I can. I mean, I could do that right now, but I would rather if someone else did first.
I'm assuming. Annette was saying
I think that, I'm sorry, Jen, I think that Masumi is asking more rather than a reflection, a recap in a slower way of what Annette said. And
that's where I was going. Thank you. Yeah. Annette was saying that she facilitates other classes, and in those 2 classes, her students in those classes also had conflict. Directly after the conflict that was happening in this group, she went and then facilitated it in her own groups as well, and was just wondering what was happening with all of this conflict, and it was all happening all at once. That was what I heard.
I want to just add in there the part that I liked, particularly, which is that being in this conflict with us in this leadership group helped her to hold the conflict in her classes more easily.
I'm sorry for interrupting, but I just couldn't follow.
Yeah.
It's a gift, you know, to slow us down.
Yeah. I'm curious how many people were able to watch the video before tonight. The video of the team, the leadership team meeting. Okay, so I see 2 hands, 3 hands. Okay, 4. Okay. I'm just feeling really really strongly impacted by it. I will try and speak slowly. Many different things on many levels. one is I was very grateful to you all on the leadership team for sharing some of your conversation with us here. Right? There's a transparency about that felt really helpful to me. And then I was deeply activated by what Isabel shared, because I feel such a longing for us being able to talk about that kind of things, like the real serious things that are happening in the world today. And I understand that there is a sense that that's not what this group is for, or I'm not saying it right, but that's not exactly what this group is for, or anyway. So I'm not trying to make this group into something that it's not. I just want to say that I have a center of gravity that's very connected with what's happening in the world. So it was activating in a good way for me. And I also want to say that there's a place in me that has been feeling a little discouraged by the or a lot discouraged by the conversation here. Not anything wrong with anything anyone has said, but just my own discouragement that, wow, if we have such a hard time dealing with interpersonal conflicts, almost like no wonder we have such a hard time dealing with conflicts in the world or something like that. So there's a kind of a hopelessness that comes up. And at the same time, and this is the last thing I'll say for now, I do think that they're connected. I do think that our ability to deal with interpersonal conflict strengthens our ability to deal with difficult things in the world. And I do think we did really, really, really good work here last time. And I still feel deeply moved by what happened. And for me, at any rate, the purpose of developing those skills and muscles and abilities, and I think by what Lynn said in the video that she shared, right? It's about both the personal and the larger political in the world. And so it's about both of those. And they're interconnected. So I'll stop here for now. Thank you.
No, I mean, I totally disagree with you, Rosa. I think that for me, it is much easier to talk about what's happening in the world than what happens here. And I think, I mean, for example, I think the group has far more articulate people than me. And when we started, I mean, there was this silence. I think we avoided talking about what happened last week. I mean, I think that is more difficult, I think. Here, I know you brought up your desire to talk about, sexuality, politics, racial conflicts, and also Marvin and other people, but I mean, I'm willing to do it, but we haven't really gotten into that direction. We can vote to do it. I'll be glad to do it. I think when we had the whiteboard, also we voted and we did it. There's no reason why we couldn't talk about those other topics. And what happened last week has been in my mind the last 2 weeks, almost every single day. Not in a way of necessarily of being obsessing about it, or simply because I felt that I feel like I had a responsibility to further continue talking about it. and it's hard to, I guess it's difficult to talk about it too, because I don't want to take sides. So by saying a little more about one person, then the other person is not being viewed and might be looked at as taking sides. But I think what I mean, the things that come up with me is that I know we have the freedom about there are no rules, right? And then and I'm not saying there should be rules, but I think it sounded like when the cursing was used in a small group, to express feelings, was alienating BJ, and then some boundaries were crossed for her, and then she tried to set limits in that particular group, and she was not respected, and then she says that it's so important for her to learn that she can say no. And the other, and so those boundaries were crossed, and so for me, there's something to think about. To what extent we use aggression in the group by cursing, and then how it impacts others, or who knows? I mean, when aggression is being expressed in group and it's not processed, then it can lead to conflict, but conflict is important. But the other thing I was I felt the safety of, because often we talk about what feels safe, what is a safe group, and then when BJ share with all of us Jim's fears about witnessing his father throwing rages, and how he could become like his father, or being like his father, and he was afraid of that part of him. And then and I can see that BJ was very angry last week, and she used that, she threw that at him in group, and I felt, and Jim brought this up in the emails, that to what extent do we respect what is spoken in our own small sessions as confidential, and is not used in this case as a weapon. To whatever, to express what she needed to express. So I thought along those lines. And the other thing that Lynn in one of the emails mentioned, that okay, I guess it was being discussed too, that the refusal of BJ to never again do a partnership. And then, but I felt in two instances, and this is just my perception, in the last year, not this our group, that there were a couple, twice, that I felt that we never had a partnership, even though I attempted to get together, that I felt, that we're all sophisticated adults, and we can find different ways to not get together with each other if one feels that doesn't like the other person. So I think that can happen, but it's not necessarily, and there's a more sophisticated way to not do a partnership. It's not being said, I'm not going to do it at all, but it's not taking place. That's what I wanted to say for now.
Roberto,
I thought, sorry, Lynn.
I just wanted to ask Roberto, I missed something in my inner Masumi, missed some things that you said, Roberto, but I didn't want to miss when you said that you feel a responsibility to, and then I didn't hear the next words. That
I guess I feel a responsibility to I guess address, I guess it was, I guess the destructiveness of perhaps cursing or aggression, and hurting somebody, or the process, and boundaries being set and not being respected. And then I felt that I need to say it, and I feel like we need to talk about it or not. On the other hand, I felt like using what is discussed in partnership as confidential, use it as a way to, as a weapon to, to confront, so I guess I feel like responsibility to
say,
bring
yeah.
to bring it out, to
I
even
just
though,
want to say that back and for me, but also for Masumi. Is that okay, Masumi? That you felt a responsibility to address, to say, to bring out that it felt that cursing feels destructive to you, and that it feels also destructive to bring up something that happens in the focusing, and that it feels important to say that,
yes,
to bring it out, to not, that you have a responsibility to say that.
right, and then something that is
Not,
supposed
yeah,
to be confidential and is,
yes, that you felt that, that it's important not to, that it's your responsibility if something is destructive if you feel it's destructive to safety, to say it. And so
yeah.
you're saying those things. Okay, Marvin, I'm sorry I interrupted. I just wanted to get the essence there of.
Well, so many different thoughts come up. Couple of points for me. I hope that we can shift from talking about these individual differences and problems to the bigger ones. We can talk about anything here. Lynn has given us that freedom, but
I just want to say, I don't think it's mine to give you.
well, I mean, you could set an agenda, but your agenda was, this is a group where anybody can step up and take leadership and set an agenda to talk about. And there are so many very complex, maybe uncontrollably complex. So we prefer to talk about things that might be almost in our control. That is, individual problems between individuals. But many of the same factors are present. We have a male and a female, some gender issue. We have two relatively affluent whites, both very educated. And we have the issues that they can't seem to resolve an issue, but that's not our business. They can resolve it or make an improvement if they wish outside the group. And we're talking all around this issue. I wish that we could put it aside and get to some what I would say were bigger issues that are facing us, conflictual issues. The other thing I wanted to add was I was really curious of how the team decided to record their impressions about a session in which we had specifically voted not to record. It just seemed like such a tremendous contradiction to me that you were talking about what we decided not to record. And it just seemed very odd to me. So it brought up back the issues to me that it's like a Saturday Night Live skit in that the war room team, the in-group team is talking about what's happening. And the rest of us are outside to watch the in-group video. So that struck me a little amiss. And
so Marvin, would it be okay with you if I
say something here and I just kind of back up a little bit? I don't want to respond directly to you right now. Would that be okay?
Sure.
So I just want to say that I was really curious when Roberto started speaking. The first thing he said was, I really disagree with you, Rosa. And then I was trying to listen and I couldn't figure out what it was that he thought that I had said that he was disagreeing with, except that eventually the closest I came to is that maybe something I said sounded like I didn't want to talk anymore about what had happened last week, and he really does. And if that's the case, I just want to say, that's not what I said. And if it is, that's not what I meant. Last time I said, we're in the middle of this and this feels really incomplete to me. And I think we need to continue. And I still feel that that's true. At the same time, I think that it's not necessarily about the two people involved. I think it's about these larger things, right? So what I heard Roberto say, oh, and I wanted to say this. I noticed how much my ability to listen was being influenced, totally shut down because I was feeling really misunderstood. So Lynn, when you reflected back to Roberto, what it was that he had said, I was so grateful because I felt like I could finally hear it in your voice. And I just want to say that I really agree. I think that the effect of anger and cursing in a group is a really useful thing to talk about. And I think that the effect of violating confidentiality in a group is a really useful thing to talk about. And I also think that it's really important to be able to talk about larger issues. So for me, it was a both and, it wasn't an either or. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
No, Rosa, I didn't felt that way. I just was disagreeing. For me, at least my perception is that I felt that it is easy to talk about larger issues than it is to talk about us in conflict. That I feel that way. I'm not denying the importance, and I heard you feeling discouraged that, and it's been, you brought up many times that you wanted to talk about other issues that you felt that they were relevant and important, but we haven't gone there yet. You know, I'm open to it.
Yeah, thank you. I feel more understanding between us
Sure.
now. I agree. I don't think it's very I think we agree that it's very easy to talk superficially about larger issues. But I don't want to talk superficially about larger issues. I want to talk in greater depth about larger issues. And I think we're getting there. I think last time was amazing. I think we were dealing with a lot of conflict in the room in a good way. And I think we're building up our muscles. And what I said is, I hope that we're building up our muscles so that then at some point we can have a really in-depth conversation about larger issues. That's all.
Sounds good.
I didn't bring it up, but I wondered in watching the video clip whether there wasn't an element of breach of confidentiality in talking about what had happened in an unrecorded session in a recorded session that could be posted to the world. And I just wonder, that's why I raised the issue of, I'm just curious what your thinking was to do that.
Well, I want to respond to that because it was, of course, these video things are always my idea. What happened there is that we weren't all present, so then we recorded the meeting so that we could share it with I forget who wasn't present, and then what was said felt so important to as part of our dialogue or our contribution to the emails. And I was feeling like the emails are one way, a written way of communicating, and that's not natural for everybody. For other people, saying and having it recorded is so I meant to send it to everybody as just our contribution to that email, but I can certainly see, Marvin, how you could feel it as a contradiction and to feel violated by it. And we wondered about that also. I think, Isabel, you brought that up. Well, maybe people aren't going to like getting this. And it felt like I didn't know. And it was really the team went along with me and said, well, let's let them in on our conversation. And then also, I would hope that if you have focusing sessions or smaller groups, or like maybe your study group, Marvin, that say things that feel really important to share, I would love it if you share them with us, and the recording is a way of doing that. So it was also kind of a precedent had been set by the emails, and then my sharing our conversation was setting another precedent that I can see would have a lot of different meanings, that we weren't in touch with all of them. So I appreciate the challenge.
I just want to bring something in, because something in me, it's awakening to this word of confidentiality and bridge of confidentiality. So two things are coming in for me, and both of them are sort of like assisting together. One, that I don't think, me personally, that the confidentiality of the previous group was violated since I was included in the emails, right? And my personal reflection was on the emails that I received, rather than, not me personally, but that the emails that were going back and forth, rather than what transpired in the group itself, because I wasn't there. And so for me, what came up, and I think you heard me talk about that in the video, was that the space that I was in when those emails were coming in was a very different place and space than the people who were in the group. And the space that I was in was having to witness yet again this is very raw for me, because today I have not watched that video. I mean, the video of Mr. Nichols, Tyree Nichols. I haven't watched that video, but what I did do today was read a sort of like a timeline investigation in the New York Times. And so that's very alive for me. And that's the space that I was in last week and the previous days. And so in my speaking wasn't so much a commentary on what transpired in the group per se, but what was coming up for me in relationship to the emails and what was happening on the outside. And I think,
Isabel, a point of clarification, did you say Mr. Nichols?
Tyree, the person that was killed, but yeah.
There was something written, something his father wrote?
No. In the New York Times, I could send you I could send people the thing, but they sent they did like a research of the timeline.
Oh,
kind of like did a moment by moment of what was happening and who was doing what.
Yes.
And even though that was written, it wasn't like a video. It was really difficult for me to read that. And so my being in that meeting last week with Lynn and the rest of the team, it's the space in which I found myself, rather than so much the space that the group was at because I wasn't there.
Mm.
But I do want to echo what I think both Rosa, Marvin to some extent, and Roberto are saying, and even Lynn, that the conflict that is arising in this group, it's almost like a prelude. I don't know if that's to being able to be in the space with someone and be in conflict or in disagreement and still hold their humanity and still hold them as a whole and not just as the conflict. And that's what for me is manifested every time I come here. And you hear me say this time and time again. Every day I come here, it's a struggle. It's a personal struggle. And yet I come because something out of this group and what is shared and what we come face to face with strengthen my own muscle to be able to be in conflict and be able to hold the humanity for myself and the other person. So, and Marvin acknowledging that this was a moment of you feeling like we were just, you know, talking behind people's back. It's what I'm gonna use here. And
Right.
that doesn't feel okay with you, right?
Right.
So thank you
got
for
it.
bringing that forward.
I love that reflection, Isabel. We were talking behind your back. Wow, I like that.
I'm curious, Isabel, what is your struggle on a weekly basis of being here? Can you be more explicit in sharing with us? If you want, you don't have to.
So not doing it would add to what my struggle is. I don't know if that makes sense. And my struggle, and I have to say this, is I'm a person of color in a Black body, which is very different than being a person of color that it's a body of culture, right? I think that there's been a couple of times when we sat maybe not the same group, but in this group, and there's things that have happened in the Black community, and then we come here and it's business as usual. It's business as usual. And I want to, I want to acknowledge Clara for her commitment to seeing me and witnessing me as a person of color. And so my struggle, Abby, is to coming here and having to decide which part of me am I gonna let come forward or be in the front, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't know that everyone else is struggling with that. Maybe you too. I don't mean you, but I mean, maybe everyone is struggling with which part it's gonna step forward, right? Every moment, not just here in this group, but in this group, even if it's something I'm doing moment by moment, in this group, it's a lot more poignant and my awareness is heightened because of who sits here. So I hope that that's, and again, it's not a struggle with the people as much as it is an internal struggle. Yes, and I hope that, right? Like I come here and who do I bring? Do I bring the mother of 2 Black men who are out here in the world and any minute could be dead just because they Black? Do I bring the woman who's been married who's been with a wife for 29 years? Who do I bring? Marvin, I love, because when you describe, I think you were describing Jim and BJ. You said, well, you have 2 people who are more affluent and highly educated. And that I'm sitting here and I was shrinking. I was a shrinking Baila in that moment. Because it felt it felt exclusionary rather than inclusionary. So you see what I'm saying? And I hope that this is,
I see what you're saying, Isabel, and I appreciate it. I should have added that Jim and BJ are from different family backgrounds, different cultural backgrounds, different regional backgrounds and values and experiences. And that's important, certainly here, because that distinguishes each of us, our experiences in our life. I want to ask for maybe your perception of how I should view the fact that this young Black man who was murdered by 5 Black men. And it's confusing. It's perplexing to me because it's easy to talk about racism.
Can I have a pause? Can I have a pause?
Please.
And yeah, I just need a pause. And I feel a real need not to go to the next thing, but to stay with Isabel in this, if that's okay with people.
Yeah, I was trying to say the same thing. That's a very concerning lead.
Can I reflect back to you what you said, Isabel, in answer to my question? I feel like, is that a good place to maybe stay with? It sounded like to me is that there's parts of your identity that feels like you feel safe in revealing in this space, but there's also a part of your identity that feels you have to be very cautious in how much to let through. And there's sometimes those parts of identities that is so core to what you're experiencing, but in this space, there's not enough of an opening or a resonance or a fear of not enough resonance to bring that in. And there's a kind of a holding backness and something along the lines of that. Is that what you were saying?
If I don't have my headphones on, it takes a minute to unmute. But deep bows of gratitude and appreciation for the reflection, and it does encapsulate and capture a lot of what you're saying. But I think that for me, one of the biggest pieces here is that I am not a fragmented human being. That I should be able to come in here with all of who I am. And that the fact that I have to choose who to bring forward, it's painful.
Mm.
That in itself, it's painful.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And that I'm doing this, like even as we speak, like I have to, it's almost like having the analogy is like going to a class and looking, what am I gonna wear to this party? And imagine, rather than getting to the party, you spend the entire time in front of your closet, paralyzed, trying to decide what to wear. And that's how it feels for me to be in this group.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And yet I am every time with joy, because I'm here with joy, which is, for some of my friends, it's hard to understand. How can you be there with joy when you talk about all the suffering? But it's out of that. It is out of that I get to practice part of being the word, not just here in these boxes, but out there in all my fullness.
Mm-hmm.
So.
You know, Isabel, thank you for bringing us into this I don't know what the word is, but you're having to choose your outfits in coming into the group, and it seems like there was a lot of meaning behind it, very powerful, very strong, and it's a lot of vulnerability there. And I can see why. I mean, it's just, of course, you know, having two black sons, you know, the struggle is even, the fear is even greater, I think. But I appreciate you talking about this. I really do. I've been missing you speaking more, and felt you've been taking a back seat, or, you know, and you openly have said, you know, in a focused way, you know, sometimes it's important to, you have the choice or the option to not say anything by being present. But I appreciate you, you know, talking today. And I'm sorry that I know this topic about this, I was watching PBS last night, and then about lynching in the United States, and how, you know, how the Black Lives Matter movement, pioneered by women, and initially was pioneered by women too, back in the 1900s, that it is it's a movement against, you know, modern lynching. So anyway, but I hope by me saying that is not, I'm not moving away from you, Isabel. Just, I think I'm staying with you. And so anyway, thank you.
So I have a question, Isabel. You're saying, if I'm hearing you correctly, that the whole of you cannot come forward. You find yourself saying, oh, which part of me do I show to this group? So my question for you, and really I'm trying to understand, is what might be a small step that we could take as a group that would enable the whole of you to come forward without reservation? And in asking that question, I think some of what you're saying probably applies to a lot of us who are sitting here, who say to ourselves, you know, what part do I show? What do I do? What don't I hold? You know, what do I hold back? So I guess my question for you is, you know, what is a small step in terms of our, for example, in terms of our interaction one with another, that would enable the whole of you to come forward without reservation? And again, a small step. I'm not talking about, you know, major miracle here or anything like that, but what might be something that we could do as a group as we interact with one another to enable the whole of each of us to come forward without reservation?
I love this, Joe, because this right now, it's one of the things that keeps me from coming with the whole of me. It is precisely that question, or that kind of question, that keeps the whole of me from coming forward. Because Marvin just asked, well, I want to ask you. And it is that kind of what it's arising for me. It's not that what should I tell you, but it's really what internally you, and I mean all of us, should be connecting with to hold that person, whoever that person may be, and create a space for them to show up, right? Because now the onus is on me to say, well, as a Black person, as a gay person, to tell you this, that, and it just, that's the part that feels overwhelming. I don't know if overwhelming is covers it today. Maybe it's what came, but it is that piece. And I'm also not here representing Black people
Mhm,
or
mhm.
Latinx. I'm here representing Isabel Adon and what she's experiencing in this body, right? And what's arising for me. And so when you ask me that, immediately what arose was like, oh, I am now the one who has to say to you, well, do this for me. I need that. And I just feel like that's an internal process and it's individual. And like you saying, every one of us sitting here is probably sitting and living a part outside of this room that is not known to any one of us
Mhm.
for whatever reason, right?
Yeah.
Some people use filter because they don't want people to see I love to show my bookcase that my wife built for me. I love it. Doesn't match the rest, but I don't care, right? But anyway.
So
May I say something?
wanna oh, Rachel, you want to speak? I can wait.
No, you. Oh, I just wanted to, if I could. First of all, there's so many beautiful things have been said, and I'm glad it's recorded. Isabel said some beautiful things about holding conflict and still holding one another's humanity, which I feel like could sort of be the title of what this is all about. So I just, if I could come back very tenderly, come back to something that I thought I was hearing Joe say differently than how Isabel, you heard it. And I'm not sure how Joe intended it, but to me, I wasn't hearing it as Isabel, you, a gay person of color or a particularly miraculous person as I experience you. I was hearing just the Isabel as an individual. I was taking that question in like, yes, what is Isabel, the individual? Not so much, or not only, please speak for all Black people, or please speak for all women or people who've been married 29 years, between 29 years and 35 years. I wasn't hearing that. I was hearing an invitation of which I would love to receive, and all of us to receive, of sort of what would make you, what would help you feel invited to be more welcome, and if that could be taken in possibly, like I sort of answered that for myself, and in a way wanted to offer that because it seemed that there's so much more complexity with and an invitation, and it sort of it hurts in like, it feels like a few levels away from crying, that there's this attempt to be an invitation, and there's so much. Isabel, you were one of the first people to introduce me to the concept of intergenerational trauma. There's so much trauma of Black people, of Jewish people. There's so much trauma that we all carry, that it seems like the question, instead of it being able to be taken, here's this middle-aged white man saying, how can we receive you more? And I get it. There's kind of like a fuck you. I hope that's being recorded. A fuck you, white person. I don't get it already. You've had generations of us doing whatever we've had to do, or like, fuck you, man, asking me how to make me have an orgasm. You've watched enough porn, like, figure it out already. So I get that, like, exhaustion, that sort of like intergenerational racial everything trauma. But I also want to freshly hear, wow, somebody's asking, how can I hold you in a way that you could feel welcome, and welcome all of you? And I don't know if that's what Joe intended, but I love that. So
I'm feeling really uncomfortable here. Excuse me for jumping in. I want to say Clara, I felt really good earlier when you interrupted Marvin. Oh, Rachel, I appreciate what you said, and I didn't hear what Isabel said as a fuck you at all. I heard it as a very skillful, wow, look at this. Let's look at this right now in this moment, this paradox, right? That this well-meaning your part is this is it. Like, look, I'm showing it. It's like the finger pointing at the moon. Like, look, it's right there, right? And I just want to say that I think it can be really exhausting. And so a couple of different things. First of all, I just want to say that I'm still, before anything else, like I'm still back here, Isabel, you have 2 Black sons, right? That's still like ringing and echoing inside of me. You know, I it's just huge. And so I feel like you've already shared, like you've already answered Joe's question. You've already answered everybody's question. You've already shared about yourself. You've already said, I have 2 Black sons. And I don't feel like we've really taken that in.
I
Sorry.
So I'm just saying that of course we want to support, of course we want to understand, of course we want to figure things out. And I don't know. I mean, I get into my head a lot, but I just want to say it feels like everybody's getting into their head here. And I'm just still like, it's just like this thing that's still like reverberating inside my heart right now.
I would like to, I would like to say something because I haven't spoken tonight. Isabel, it's like, I have no doubt that you, Joe, meant all the things Rachel said. And at the same time, there are things that we as white people don't know. And when we hear it, then we're responsible for trying to never do that again. I remember the first time a Black person said to me, it is not my job to help you except me. I heard that. And it's in my heart now. Just like I heard Masumi say, I don't speak English well. I can't keep up. And I heard that so powerfully when she said it last year that I just made a little vow in myself. I'm going to recognize there might be people here who don't know about X, Y, or Z. And it's just, we're responsible once we know. And I have such mourning, Rosa, that's the word that it is for me, mourning at how slow we are to know. Just slow to hear what all dark people all over the world, the darker people. I mean, God, you know, I studied a lot of world whatevers in teaching religion. The darker people just get kicked in the ass again and again, if it's in India, wherever it is. And honestly, I don't know either. Marvin, I'm with you. I don't know how to take in that the officers who killed him were Black and he was Black. And that really is not mentioned in many, many reportings. That's not mentioned. And I'm trying to get my mind around that. But one thing I know is when you started talking, Joe, I wanted to just jump out of my chair because I could hear it coming. And I wanted to say, wait, Joe, wait. But we can't know till we know. So that's all I want to say. And Isabel, I'm just, my heart breaks for you, for how you feel when your boys leave in the morning. My heart breaks for you.
So I,
For a second, Abby, I just need a breath. Not more than that. And
yeah,
that's what I want to hear from you, but I just need to breathe for a second. There's so much here on the plate.
yes.
Go ahead, Abby.
So I want to jump not from the content but more looking at the context. And as a person of color who've been in a lot of diversity, equity, inclusion spaces, a lot of organizations, this pattern that we're seeing here comes up over and over again. And it's something that I've yet to find a place for in me, because I, one, resonate with being a person of color, especially during the hate crimes, and saw the suffering and being excluded, and exactly what Isabel is saying, right? Like growing up in the Deep South and in the redneck countries of Virginia, I've been there. But I also see the earnestness of the other side, of people who desperately say, like, I really just don't know even where to start. And there's a heart and wanting, and there just doesn't seem like there's a middle point in which we can meet without the rehashing of the pain and then feeling the burden, and the other side feeling the sense of helplessness. And it feels like there isn't a connective bridge being built in some ways. Like, it's kind of like, what is possible for the two sides to come together. Like, the side doesn't know, it wants to know. The side is in pain, it doesn't want to keep diving into the pain. Like I'm not sure I have the solution, but I'm just saying this is like something that I see over and over again. And like, what is possible? Because yeah, it's like, how can we hold the pain, and how can we create education to hold the pain?
And how can we hold you, Isabel, as a whole person, your humanity, just not just parts? I don't know if I'm totally off here or not, but you're a wonderful person who adds so much to the group. I want to be able to hold you as a person, as a human being, and at the same time recognizing your parts. And I guess that's what we're needing to do with holding our conflicts, holding one another, who we are. I don't know, I'm trying to get my head around this holding piece, but it feels like the humanity piece is just such a deep need. And I'm ignorant probably in a lot of different ways and don't quite know. But there are parts, we've each got parts, but you're just a human being, not just. Why, I just want to be able to.
So,
and everyone else, just as another human being who's part of this group and who we can love and care about. I don't know if I'm just being too simplistic.
Yeah,
that's very well raised a bunch of times. I'm really curious what Clara is wanting to say.
Yeah, thanks, Rosa. And I hear so much of the earnestness here and wanting to not only meet Isabel, but to meet this greater issue. And I'm still back with what Marvin said earlier on. Like, how could 5 officers, Black officers, kill this Black man? And it like really gets to me because, our society has made it so that whether you're a Black person killing another Black person, it's okay to pummel someone who has a Black body to death. You know, we collectively have looked the other way for way too long. And there's an okayness about doing something like that. It's not about, you know, it's not about skin color, really, in some ways. It's not about the color of the skin. And you know, Abby, I appreciate this, like, how can we meet? Yeah, there is that earnestness of people to know, but there's so much reparation that we really need to make as people in lighter skinned bodies, you know, and I feel like that we need to not meet in the middle, but we need to really do the work to meet these people who have been so horribly inhumanely treated for hundreds of years now, you know. And so I feel angry about that, and I feel yeah, so that's really it.
Yeah, I just want to really briefly say, you know, something that I mean, so first of all, I want to say I have light skin privilege. I am Latina. I am not a white person. I do not identify as white, but I pass as white. And unless I speak up and I say, hey, I have people in my family who are way darker than me, this is not who I am, who you see is not all of me, then I don't get followed in stores. I don't, I have a lot of privilege, right? So I just want to acknowledge. And I want to say that something I heard a long time ago, I really appreciated what you shared, BJ, about, you know, that we need to listen and we need to learn. Something I heard a long time ago is, you know, if you want to learn, you know, start out. There are books, there are movies, there are, you know, it's like there's so much we can do to begin to learn about the experience of people that can be a really useful starting point. And so I think being sincere and earnest is great, but when it's like, I'm really sincere and earnest, and I'm just going to start out my learning journey by taking a person who's had a brunt of oppression and asking them to be my teacher, that's not okay, right? So we've heard that here now out of the mouths of a lot of different people, a lot of different times. And there was the first time I heard it, right? We all have a first time that we hear it. There's nothing wrong with not knowing anything. And this is an important thing to learn. The other thing I want to say that I heard Isabel say to us already that I just want to underline, it was a small phrase. She said, I come here and there's a bunch of people, and the stuff that has happened in my world and my family's world, my friends' world, it's like none of it has registered, and it's just like business as usual, right? And so for me, the lesson from that is that, you know, the whole thing that people are talking about, different social bubbles, et cetera, it's like we're all in our own bubbles. And to the extent that we can realize that, wow, there are people who are going to be affected by things that in my particular bubble, unless I make the effort to think about, right? So it's like, so I would take from that the sense of that if we want to create a more inclusive space for different people here, we need to be thinking about, oh my gosh, you know, and sometimes we're really slow at it, right? Like this recent thing, I just had somebody as a guest on a video show who is from Memphis and is African-American man, and he was sharing some beautiful work that he's been doing there. And I don't follow the news very regularly. So it took me a few days later to realize, oh shit, all this stuff about Memphis has been happening on the news. This person's from Memphis. And I sat down and I wrote an email and I said, I am so sorry to be hearing about all of the tragedies that are happening in the city where you have been doing so much good work, right? Like it wasn't much longer than that, but it was just, you know, just kind of connecting the dots, right? Like if we hear that there's been a really intense racial incident, right? And we know that there's somebody in our group who is part of that community, we would do well to think about, wow, I've heard about this, and I thought about you, and my heart is with you. And, you know, like it's, yeah. And I think that that's the kind of thing that, for whatever reason, we don't think of doing so often. Connecting the dots.
I
I
want to,
just put, I'm sorry, Lynn, I know you cannot see it, but I just put a poem in the chat. That, you know, really speaks to me about what we talking about. And
read it.
I don't want to read it if somebody else wants to, but I do want to say, Joe, I have nothing but love for you, for your courage, and for your willingness to want to witness me. Nothing but love. And you know that to be true since you've been here and you were here before. And we've been rolling in this mud for a bit now. And I am okay with it. And I appreciate what you bring forward. I truly do. So just want to say that, and to Marvin too, and Clara, thank you for sort of like answering Marvin's question around the dichotomy of how can this be? Thank you.
I
I'm
want
bowing
to
out.
go back to because the string was dangling for me. It's like I keep these conversations and they're like strings hanging. And Joe, when you were saying what little movement can we do to help you, Isabel, to bring more of your whole self? And I was thinking about that we're doing it, that for Isabel to say she can't bring her whole self is the movement. And I had a memory of a professional therapy group, and the way that we started the group was to ask each person what parts of themselves they couldn't bring to the group, what interests, passions, parts of their lives they had to keep out to be part of this group. And it was so amazing what people said, and so intimate. And I think that step of what we can't bring or what we're struggling with, I think we're doing that more and more. And Isabel, I think you're taking that step of bringing what you can't bring is so important. And I just wanted to say to Rosa that I'm a person that doesn't read. And if I'm going to be more knowledgeable about all of the struggles of race relations by reading, it's not going to happen. But for me, the way that it happens is to be close to people with everything, everything in the world. I understand it by getting close to people who are experiencing it. And I've learned so much, Isabel, from being close with you and developing an inner Isabel. In my family, my domestic life here, having two people of color that are the helpers of my partner, so that we are a family that is an interracial family now, and they're from two very different cultures, Guyanese and Jamaican. I'm learning so much more day by day and broadening myself in ways that I couldn't without those intimate relationships. So I think we're trying to develop the intimate relationships to develop more of that way of knowing the big thing. I guess that's my general way, is to know the big thing by knowing the microcosm.
May I say a last word? To we, so I haven't spoken, and I have a heavy heart. I'm feeling it hard to talk, and you know, I know it's some feelings of guilt in there, and there's something, I'm going to try to say it how I mean it. This, and I would like to find Isabel. There she is. I have heard before in this group, not from Isabel, but a couple years ago, this was a person of color who said angrily, "Do I have to teach you about my people and what's happened?" And I felt kind of taken aback. And there's a part of me that feels I do want to be in need to be taught in the same way that every person I know teaches me something, not because I'm so, you know, this stupid little thing, but I guess I learned through people interactions in a way, a different way than I learned through books. And I do read books, but it gets through to me in a way that I think it's the thing that changes me. So I don't need to be told, you know, to be a nicer person or what. I guess, you know, tonight it's painful for me, but it's really helpful. I need that. It's Isabel, you bringing this self here. And that, I hate to use the word teach, it's probably the wrong word, but it speaks and I can hear. And that to me is a learning. Thank you.
I would like to just say a couple of things. And there's part of me that's holding back some anger at this point, because I just read what Isabel, you posted. And there's a part of me that can understand that this poem reflects the intensity of what you might be feeling. But at the same time, I have to ask you to think about how the words of this impact someone like myself when I read the words, "I'm sick of mediating with your worst self on behalf you, your better selves. I am sick of having to remind you to breathe before you suffocate your own fool self. Forget it, stretch or drown, evolve or die." Now, I understand that reflects the intensity of the feeling. If I take those words personally and say, oh my gosh, if that's what she really means, why should I even bother with trying to understand? And there's a part of me that wants to push back and say, if you're not able to tell me how we might move forward, or at least have a discussion around that, who else should I go to? Because I value your life experience. I value what you bring to all of us here. But if you're saying hey, I'm not responsible for solving this. I'm not asking you to be responsible. I'm saying, walk with me. Does that make sense?
Does make sense. And I think that the last line in this poem, it's really what brings it home for me. I must be the bridge to nowhere, but to my true self. And then I will be useful. So to me, I can bridge the gap for other people when my own gaps I haven't bridged. When I'm still struggling here with showing up. I think for me, it's important that I am aware of my own struggle before I jump to solve someone else's struggle. And I just share my struggle, right? And I use the analogy of standing in the front of the class, trying to decide what to wear to come here. But the thing for me and what makes the difference for me is that I actually show up, that I actually come, that every Wednesday I do come, that the struggle, it's not what shapes me. It's not the struggle of showing up. What's being shaping me is the actual showing up. And I don't know if that makes sense. Like, yeah, I'm gonna come. And I am telling you, and this is the truth. I leave, and Lynn knows it, and the team knows it. I leave them with mid-sentence and I run out. Because if I don't leave at a certain time, I will not get here on time. And believe me, if I could take that train and push it myself just to be here on time for this group, I would do it 1,000 times because of what I say. Everyone here, there's not a week that I come here and there's not some nugget, something that's offered that I can use and digest and see how it applies to me and how I can move through navigating life in a way that is transparent, honest, caring, and holding of everyone. And I think that that's part of what I get here. And I just want to say, this is a very strong poem and one that I turn to quite often. This book was given to me a few years ago at a conference, at a focusing conference, Mercy by the Sea, by the people in the library. And I read this so many times and I write on it. I don't usually write on book, but it really speaks to my own personal struggle with what I am struggling. And again, Joe, I apologize if that landed in the way it landed on you, and it didn't mean to erase you. It didn't mean to erase you and who you are and what you offer.
I understand that, and I understand it as a metaphor of how I understand the poem as a metaphor for what you're trying to express. But I guess I disagree with the last line that says, I must be the bridge to nowhere but myself. My experience in life has been that I can't, yes, I have responsibility for discovering my true self. But what I've also discovered is I can't do that alone. I have to walk with people who love me and are able to hold me and be with me. I mean, in focusing, the value of a companion being with me as I focus is huge because it allows me to go to places I would never be able to go by myself. So yes, you have to be the bridge. I agree, but you don't have to walk alone.
And I think that the fact that I'm here speak volume and loudly to not walking alone. So that's kind of like what is that word? Is it an oxymoron? I am here, which means I'm not intending to walk alone. I am here by choice, people. Let it be known. If that's not clear, I'm here by choice. I'm here by choice every single time with me. And you know, how long I've been coming, I lost count and I don't care, because that's the whole thing that I'm saying. You guys do not have any idea of the contribution that you make. You don't, you can, you know, it's so important. And I cherish it and I value it. Even the silence, I value.
You know, what I'm hearing is, well, many things, but appreciate Joe to make that point about that. Perhaps maybe one of the only ways is walking together. The only solution is that we have to do it together. Otherwise, we're at a loss. And I guess Isabel perhaps needed the poem to, or for others to express the rage at the situation that, and it needed to come out, you know. And I hope, Joe, you're not, by reading that, you're identifying with the oppressor, but far more away than that. You know what I mean? Like I don't see you as the one that the poem wishes you were dead, but somebody very different.
I'd love to hear from, thanks Roberto, but we haven't heard from Kate or Jim or Masumi, or there was somebody else here. I think we haven't heard from.
John.
Thank you, Clara. I was thinking that too, that we also want to have a little time at the end for the invitations for the presentation. So I would love to hear from people who haven't spoken.
Thank you, Clara. But I have nothing to say for the moment. I want to hear other people sharing.
Yeah, I'll share. I think what's the feeling that I'm having in response to this is it's like this warmth. I just have this warmth, and I have this like almost like joy, which is interesting in response to this conflict. And there's this, I just like, I see all of you, and I see this, you know, this struggle, this working through, and it really strikes me, like Lynn used the word intimacy, right? And it really strikes me that what we're talking about when we talk about safety, which has been our conversation since the beginning, and right now, and what Isabel shared, is we're talking about intimacy. And it's interesting, like I was doing this class a few months ago about intimacy with my partner, and there's this idea of like how we are in intimacy together, and there's this idea of like if I'm gonna have sex with my partner, right, do I want her to like be focused on pleasing me, or do I want her to be focused on enjoying me? And like it's pretty clear that I want her to enjoy me. I don't want her to worry about, like, you know, I'm gonna enjoy it, but like I just want her to like take pleasure in me and like in being with me, right? That's what's great. And I think when we talk about intimacy, like this is a different kind, but it's similar. Like my experience of Isabel, like with you, Isabel, is one of like just joy, like pleasure, just like a gulf of difference. But it's like this, I see this difference and I see, wow, like look at this human. And it's like there's laughter and there's connection and there's acceptance and love and understanding. And to me, it strikes me as like that's the way forward. Like and if you come and if I do something to offend, or if you do something to offend, the intimacy is there that I can share that, and you can share that with me. And through that pain, it's like, oh wow, that hurts. accepting that and then working through it together and still seeing the value and enjoying the other person through that. And I think we're really succeeding at that in a lot of ways, right? It's like, it's this intimacy, and the fact that she can share that internal struggle, the fact that you can share that, Isabel, is like, that's a gift, you know, that is intimacy. And that is like, oh, now we know that. And there's more intimacy in that. And I'm grateful for that, right? I'm grateful for that deepening of connection, for that sharing. And like, I accept that with humility wherever it goes, whether it goes somewhere painful. If it goes somewhere painful, there's more opportunity for intimacy. That's great. You know, we're increasing that here. You know, and across the depth of differences, like the greater the depth of those differences culturally or ethnically or whatever that is, like there's so much opportunity for growth in like that I'm grateful for in that intimacy, right? Like, and it's not a taking, it's just like, it's an accepting of, wow, there's this difference, and that's exciting. And you know, and through empathy and through support is offering myself and understanding. I think one of the most sacred things that we can do for each other is simply understand and accept. And I think that's what we're here for in this group and as human beings. And yeah, that's my piece. Is my experience of Isabel, again, is like openness and joy and like love and wonder. And there's like intimacy there too, you know, when, you know, I regret that we weren't able to connect on our focusing session, but I still have that love. I still have that connection, and I really value that. And it doesn't have to be anything. It doesn't have to be anything other than what it is. I just enjoy it, and I'm grateful for it. Yeah.
I love that, John.
I'd like to talk a little bit about how I feel. Okay, you are a group of Americans or North Americans, and you have your own culture and bringing up everything based on American culture. So I feel a little bit left out, having a very different values or the history of my background. And whenever you talk about like murder, we don't hear much about it. And so I really sometimes wish you would explain a little more what you are talking about, so I can fully get what you're trying to talk about. So even though I feel left out as feel like an outsider, why do I come here? Like Isabel, why do you come out within something negative about it? But I come here because I really am touched with your intention, trying to understand more deeply about other people and about yourself. This intention that I can sense, even though I don't understand fully, but it's so beautiful. And maybe you express it as using the word holding. I am deeply moved by people's positive attitude to accept whatever comes, like focusing. And also what Joe said, that we need other people to understand oneself better. And it's the interaction, it's so beautiful, even though I don't understand fully, but I get this whole atmosphere, you all people trying to understand each person more deeply and accept each person's differences. And also I'd like to add that why I like partnership very much, because I get to know that persons more deeply. And that helps my world widen up. I feel I'm not saying the whole thing that I am feeling, but I will stop here. Thank you.
I feel so touched by what you said, Masumi. I'm taking it in, and I feel very warm inside hearing you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Masumi.
Yeah, I feel moved, Masumi, very much so.
Me too, Masumi.
Me too, Masumi. I would like to invite y'all to go and listen to the solstice ceremony service, because Masumi so beautifully explained to us a lot of things about her faith and how it's not exactly like some people in America's faith. And Masumi, it helped me to get to know you and to feel close to you, because you had a chance to talk about something that was about your culture. And so thank you again.
I'm wondering, Jim, if you have anything to say here. You've been a quiet person that then has become a not so quiet person, and now you're quiet. So I'd love to hear any words if you have them.
Not me.
I have lots of words. I'm debating whether I should make you turn off the recording first, but I think I'd rather just not say them, actually. So I'm going to go with that.
Will you write them to us?
If I do, then I will.
Mhm. But I can also turn off the recording. Let me do that just in case those words might come out.
I want to offer an additional reflection. I don't know if Jim will think that this is accurate or not, but what
I
I'm
don't know if Jim wants your reflection of him to be recorded. Do you, Jim?
No, actually.
okay.
Turn the recording off, and then I'll say what I was going
Right.
to say. I'm not going to say what I was going to say at this point. I'll probably tell it to you some other time. But Rosa, sometimes when you speak, it brings me down into, oh, there's the feeling. And what I was going to say, I think, is much too conceptual. So thank you for that. But what I do want to say, we only have 2 minutes, is I've very much appreciated this conversation. And I want to take those last 2 minutes to talk about your projects and to offer some invitations. One invitation is that I want to give a workshop on focusing oriented presenting. You know, how we use focusing to present things for any way that we're presenting. And I'd like to do that on March 1st on a Wednesday night. Want to know if you people can make that. And I'll be inviting other people too. And but it's mostly meant for you to give all of you anything I know or have thought about in terms of presenting, to start you in the process of thinking of maybe your what you're offering doesn't have to do with presenting. But so that's one thing. So I'd like you all to maybe just in the chat say whether you could come on Wednesday night, March 1st or not, or want to come. And if The other thing is that we want to do another one of these workshops that we call big talks. It's the opposite of small talks, and we did them on othering and other subjects, and some of you were involved. And I want to do this one on focusing in activism. And Isabel is going to be one of the speakers, and Yao, and I'm going to do an experiential exercise in that session. And Greg Madison is going to say some things. So that will be on Sunday evening, Sunday afternoon, my time, from 2 to, I think it's from 2 to 4, 2 to 4:30. And I would love that if some of you are moved to help in some way or participate in some way as part of your project. So if you're interested in that, we may have breakout rooms and then have some of you be facilitators for those small groups, talking about how the spirit of activism and the spirit of focusing can go together and enhance each other. So let me know about that.
Just a quick question. What's the date on that second?
It's March 26th, my mother's birthday.
Okay.
My mother's birthday. Focusing in activism. We're going to have Kate lead most of it.
And what time, Lynn, on the 26th?
2 to 4:30.
Lynn, our Kate looked surprised there. Is that?
I'm teasing her. I like to tease our Kate. So that's really all I wanted to start us in thinking about how our conversation here is on these different levels. And I don't think we go from the personal to the, I don't think we prepare with the personal and then go to the larger level, but I think it's all interwoven here. But then to bring it into a larger group through our projects, I'd love to support you and see what you're going to make here and do here. And it doesn't have to be a presentation, of course. Your leadership is being expressed in everything you do here in this group. But whatever way that you want to sort of experiment and express yourselves, we'll all support you. Traditionally, we've had the projects presented as the last thing in the end of June or the beginning of July, but this time we want to do it all along. So connect with us, meaning the team or all of us, about anything that you're interested in doing and getting help with. So it's 5 after 8. Does anybody have any last thing you want to say before we stop?
I do. If anyone would like to stay, and if you can share the screen, you'd allow me to share a screen, I can share a video of the Antarctica trip. Like to see.
Let's record it because I can't stay now, but I would love to see it, Joe.
You can't record it because I don't own the rights to the music that I used, but you can't record it. So
How long would it be?
it's 10 minutes.
Oh,
9 minutes and 30 seconds, probably around that.
Well, I'm going to go ask permission of my people in my household here, and I'd love to see it. So
I'm
If
sorry, I
anybody'd
missed
like
Joe.
to see it, I can tee it up and have it great.
They're
sorry,
very
I missed it,
beautiful. They're
Joe.
very beautiful.
Thank you, Joe. I'm gonna just be off camera because I need to talk to my husband for a moment.
Okay, someone needs to allow me to share my screen.
I made you host.
Thank you, Joe. I'm sorry.
Okay,
There we go.
turn the recording off if we're not allowed.
Okay, and I've prepared this video to use with a religious group, so there is a religious overtone to some of the music that I selected, but just stay with the pictures.
Joe, I'm not able to turn the recording off, and I don't think it matters because we're not gonna make it public or anything, but I just wanted you to know you would have to if you want to. I'll be back.
Joe, you have to turn off the recording because she made you
okay.
host.
And Joe, sorry, I have to leave.
Okay.